You know, I didn't feel as though that the contract was right, so I didn't accept it. I didn't like the offer. I thought it was a slave deal.
So, you know, you got a lot of people who are not really happy about the fact that, you know, my album is about to drop. You know, they're not really happy about, you know, Lord, give me a sign. And, you know, we in here and, you know, things of that nature. But you know what?
Every single album that I dropped, Jay dropped right on top of me. And it was like, damn, like to have in-house competition at that magnitude was crazy. Jay already the boss, but I always thought that, like, let me breathe.
Jay-Z told Dr. Dre, just for people who's not up on this, or Eminem, that he didn't want you to perform part of that Super Bowl they had a couple years ago.
I think when it goes past the music itself to blocking things in business, then I don't understand that.
Gillie Da Kid is the latest voice in hip-hop to call out Jay-Z for his puppet master tactics behind the scene. And Gillie went as far as to break down what he calls a modern-day slave contract, the type of deal he claims Jay allegedly uses to trap artists under the illusion of mentorship and opportunity. Now, if you're new here, Gillie Da Kid isn't just some random with an opinion. Before his rise as co-host of the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, he was deep in the rap game himself, coming up with the legendary underground group Major Figgas. According to Gillie, Roc-A-Fella came knocking back in the day, but things weren't as sweet as they seemed. And now, years later, he's opening up about the real reason his career stalled, and he's pointing the finger at Jay. Gillie claims Jay has a pattern of swooping in to help up-and-coming artists, only to shelve them or blackball them once they start looking like competition. And now fans are pointing out that they've heard similar stories for years, from Jazzo to Beanie, Sigel, DMX, 50 Cent, and many others. But is Gillie spilling the truth, or is he just stirring the pot for clicks? What exactly did he mean by Jay-Z using slave contracts? Let's break it down.
That's why I don't go to no parties, because all of it is fake. All of it is a bunch of fluff. All of it is a bunch of drunk lying to each other. Man, we gonna get together, man. Mr. Yeah, baby. Yeah. I ain't even got your number. Shut up.
Gillie Da Kid, best known as one half of the hit $1 Million Worth of Game podcast with his cousin Wallow, took things to the next level in October 2022 by renewing their Barstool Sports deal. The updated contract was allegedly worth around $3 million, securing Barstool a 50% stake in the show's ownership. But before blowing up with the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, Gillie was making noise in the rap game. Between 1999 and 2001, the Philly rapper was part of the underground group Major Figgas, who dropped their debut album, Figgas for Life, in 2000. And while trying to find the right label, Gillie said Jay-Z and Dame Dash came through trying to sign him. But Gillie turned it down because he felt there was something sketchy about the contract. In fact, he described the contract as a slave deal.
Back in the day, Hov tried to sign my group Major Figgas. It wasn't just Hov, it was Dame Dash, it was Roc-A-Fella. Okay. You know, I didn't feel as though that the contract was right, so I didn't accept it. I didn't like the offer. I thought it was a slave deal. I thought we would have to sell a quadrillion records to make some money, so I turned it down, and that was the situation.
But that wasn't the end of it. Gillie also hinted that Jay felt slighted after Gillie turned down his offer and threatened to blackball him. Now, initially, Gillie didn't take those threats seriously, but it didn't take long before he realized Jay-Z really had that kind of power.
But what transpired after that?
I mean, some things were said about making it difficult for whatever.
For you to be in this game.
But
does that happen a lot?
Yes.
If you refuse to sign with someone, it's like, okay, you're done. You're not gonna work in this industry.
It happens a lot in this game, especially to a young kid that got talent, that's young and naive. You're like, you man, what do you mean you're gonna make it difficult? I believe in God. Shut up, but the reality of it is that they can make it difficult for you. You gotta understand. Wallow was in jail, right? And he used to call home. And I used to say, cuz they blackballing me, man. And I didn't know that he thought that I was full of shit until he came home. And then we would bump into people and they would tell us, like, no, Gillie was on the list. That, like, you gotta understand, shout out to Cypher Sounds, you gotta understand, because I was talented, people didn't want to block me. So he brought me up to MTV. I was on MTV, I did an interview on MTV. And the interview was so powerful that they got a call from Universal. Said you'll never get an exclusive again.
Wow.
If you interview me.
Gillie also explained why you'll never catch him at industry events like the Roc Nation brunch. And he said that all that fake love in the industry isn't for him. And according to Gillie, Roc Nation brunch isn't really about networking and collaborating. It's more about Jay-Z asserting his dominance and flexing on his peers.
I learned that all of that fake.
Really?
Yes. All of it, that's why I don't go to no parties. Because all of it is fake. All of it is a bunch of fluff. All of it is a bunch of drunk lying to each other. Man, we gonna get together, man. Mr. Yeah, baby. Yeah. I ain't even got your number. Shut up. They say, Gillie, we wanna invite you to the Roc Nation brunch. I'm the nigga that said, why would I wanna come? Why wouldn't you wanna come? I said, you want me to keep it real with you or you want me to lie to you?
Keep it a buck.
I said the Roc Nation brunch ain't of nothing but Jay-Z putting a bunch of on the lawn and then going in the back door and saying, I told you I still run this shit. Give me the money.
Wow.
What do you get from going to these parties except for a picture? I don't even smile with you if you ain't worth 500 million or more. Let's be for real. The only smiling they do is when the billionaires in the picture. Look at all these broke ass on the lawn. Come on, man. I ain't with none of that shit. I don't want to party with you. I built the way for myself. I made a way for myself. I made my own way. Me and God, man. So I don't want to kick it with you. I don't want to do nothing. I want to stay in my own world.
And while Jay-Z's fans were quick to clown Gillie and call him bitter, a lot of folks actually backed him up, saying none of what he said is shocking at all. In fact, plenty of artists have said the same thing about Jay for years. Just look at the late great DMX, who once called out Jay for blackballing him after becoming Def Jam CEO just because he saw him as competition. So after DMX passed in April 2021, Jay pulled up on LeBron's show and made it sound like there was nothing but love between them. And he blamed their past issues on DMX being crazy competitive.
There was a competitive thing, but it was big love. He was so competitive with me. I never met a human being more competitive with me, like ever, not even my big brother.
But here's what Jay conveniently left out. DMX already made it clear that he wasn't the one competing. Jay was the one pulling sneaky moves behind the scenes out of pure jealousy. In 2004, when Jay took over as president of Def Jam, stepping in after Layer Cohen, that's when things started getting shady. At that point, DMX had already dominated the charts, dropping 5 straight #1 albums between 98 and 03, putting the whole label on his back. But once Jay sat into that power seat, DMX claimed Jay started playing games with the rollout of his 6th album, Year of the Dog, again.
What happened was, like I said, I had the crazy track record of Def Jam, everything was good. I go to do the 6th album, and
Jay-Z
somebody
became
else takes
president.
over. Yeah. When he first got the job, he hit me with the call like, yo, dog, MH is running the building, like, yo, you good? Mm-hmm. Finish the album, shoot the video. What happened? Mm-hmm. Go on vacation and, we don't know. What you mean you don't know? Mm-hmm. How do you listen to a whole album, pick a single, shoot a video, then don't know?
So according to DMX, Jay was plotting his big return, and he didn't want any real competition standing in his way.
Okay, I see what's really good. You're trying to eliminate the competition. Mm-hmm. Because at first you retire, then get me off the label, now you're back rapping again. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's all good. It's all good.
And that's when X peeped game. He realized Jay was the type to throw folks under the bus if it helped him climb higher. So he cut ties with Def Jam and kept it pushing. But here's where it gets even messier. DMX had deep-rooted trust issues with Jay. And it wasn't just personal. It had everything to do with Jay's ties to the shady power players in the industry. While Jay played the corporate game to win, X was never one to bite his tongue or sell his soul just to fit in with label execs and their agendas.
They got this new breed of rapper that's paying DJs to play their shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They sucking the record label executive, and it's like there's too much of that going on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Let me be me. Let me be the artist that I am and just play my music. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Now they want you all up under this, sitting at the going to dinner with them. That and all that favor for a favor shit. I don't get down like that. Look, I give you the music, you give my money.
By the way, in 2005, DMX dropped a whole track called The Industry, where he straight up exposed the dark side of the music business and let the world know what really goes down behind the scenes.
The game is bullshit, man. The game is bullshit. if you want to rap or sing or whatever, don't become a part of the game. You know what? Listen to a song I called The Industry. And that pretty much explains, it was saying about the industry. Man, it's not the same. The industry, it's not a game. The industry, real dying to get in the industry just to find they don't fit in. The industry ain't what it used to be. The industry's trying to control the way you MC. They want you to dress like this and talk like that, but I'm going to dress like this and talk with the gas. The industry.
Now, as for Jay-Z, he's been moving like a real industry chess player from the jump. And over the years, he's caught a lot of heat for allegedly snaking folks he once called friends. Just look at Dame Dash, who's been very loud about how Jay allegedly flipped on him to cozy up with shady label executives, especially Lear Cohen, who Dame says used divide and conquer tactics to break up Roc-A-Fella from the inside.
When I first out with Lear, the first thing he did was try to make me have a beef with another black person on his behalf. And I was like, he's like, you with me, right? If you with me, then you gotta go to war with me. I said, bro, I got a lot of beefs on the street. You gonna go to war with me? Let's not do that. So there would be times that he would be saying things and like I'd be with like Beanie, Sigel or something, and he'd say something that was so offensive, unknowing, unconsciously, just demeaning. And Beanie would be ready to knock him out, and I'd have to be like, I'd have to bark on him so Beanie didn't do nothing to him. You understand? I'd be like, I got it, don't worry. Like, he was just an offensive person. What he couldn't understand about me is that I could have white people working for me. Because he thinks black people could only have black people working for him. So when I would walk in and have anybody white in my staff, he'd go to the side and go, are you okay? Let me know if they're treating me wrong.
Blink twice.
I swear to God he did that shit. Yeah, the blink twice, the napkin. He used to do it to everyone.
Now, Lear Cohen really showed his hand back in 2018 when he hit the Breakfast Club and tried to act concerned about addiction in hip-hop, saying he was sad about DMX's struggles. But when Charlemagne pressed him about signing artists who push the same lifestyle, Lear said at the end of the day, he has to make money and feed his people first and foremost.
One of the biggest artists you ever had had a real bad problem, DMX.
I'm so sad facing our society.
So why sign an artist that would promote that?
Because I already answered that question. You weren't paying attention. She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent. But I have to. I can't give up on people.
But I'm saying that's hypocritical though. You're saying
it's opportunistic.
Yeah.
I got people to feed. I got a business to run.
You're gonna make Dame Dash take this clip and call you a culture vulture.
And when they brought up Dame calling him a culture vulture, Lear arrogantly brushed it off, acting like he didn't even know who Dame was.
Come on, Lear, don't do that to him.
I don't know him. I really don't. So, I don't know what to tell you.
But hold up, it gets even messier. When DMX sadly passed, Lear took the disrespect to a whole new level with some wild comments during X's funeral. The send-off for X took place in Brooklyn on April 25th, 2021. And while folks expected Lear to show his face and pay his respects, he didn't even bother pulling up. Instead, he sent a pre-recorded message where he started with some halfway decent words, but then completely flipped the tone by calling DMX a gremlin and saying his passing wasn't all that surprising.
DMX, I knew you were going to run into a wall. The unfortunate thing is, you took my friend Earl Simmons with you.
And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, an interview with the late Irv Gotti resurfaced where Irv claimed that Jay-Z was insanely jealous of DMX's success. And according to Irv, Jay and Lear Cohen would laugh at X and talk about how he would never make it in the industry.
First meeting I ever had, I was like, we gotta sign DMX, and they laughed at me. I remember when I left the office, Tina Davis said, she knew what I wanted to sign DMX. She said, DMX don't sell, your ass is fired. Jay and Dame did not believe in DMX. Jay would be like, you think he's better than me? And I'd be like, he's nice just like you. I said, if you look in the hood, there's less of like you and more like him. Yeah, but don't want to live that. He's depressing, Gotti. And I said, I don't give a fuck. So Jay used to watch me grind with X, and he was off with the Hitman. And then something strange happened when I made Get At Me Dog. If you remember at the beginning of the video, it's the heartbeats, doom, doom. DMX, doom, doom. Live at the tunnel. Y'all don't even remember the tunnel. Funk Master Voice, doom, doom. And then I put that sound bite. Let's take it back to the streets, mother. Doom, doom. the videos flashing, f***ing up your eyes, it caused change. And now, there was no more shiny suits. We back to the hood, and X is the leader of this revolution. I used to put on the wall a triangle with 5. And they was like, they used to clown me. And they used to be like, who's gonna buy his records, Gotti? Chihuahuas, he's barking. No one wants to hear that bullshit. And I'd be like, yeah. It's 05. It was no more writing on the walls. It was, y'all can get behind me. I used to tell Leo in the midst of the whole staff, and I would tell him, yo, shut the fuck up, yo. I said, you work better when you shut up and get behind me. Now this is what we doing. And he would shut up.
But DMX wasn't the only one who Jay-Z allegedly sabotaged out of pure jealousy. TK Kirkland recently revealed that Jay also blocked Beanie Sigel's career out of fear that Beanie might surpass him.
You couldn't be bigger than Jay-Z on Jay-Z's label, if that makes any sense. They wasn't gonna push you to, that you couldn't be bigger than Jay-Z. You couldn't sell more records than Jay-Z. But all you had to do was listen to Beanie Sigel, and Beanie Sigel was, oh my God. Oh my God. And there's no hate to nobody. Jay-Z, you still my dog. You did my birthday party. You're a multi-billionaire now. Beanie Sigel, you still my, I'm always gonna show you love. So it's amazing because of the educational level in life, how you have to explain things.
And you said that an executive.
And then Beanie himself recently confirmed these claims. He responded to Dame Dash's interview where Dame went off about how Jay tricked Beanie into getting shelled, completely derailing his career. Dame said he had always seen Beanie as the future of Roc-A-Fella, but instead of supporting him, Jay allegedly worked behind the scenes to keep him from rising to the top.
Beans was getting ready. We thought he was gonna go to jail for a couple years. He was on trial. So I was trying to make 4 albums for him, or 5. I was more bothered when Beans chose to go with Jay. That one hurt, because I'd done a lot and prepared. I chose State Property over Rockware, and I wanted to just roll out with State Property. But it almost like he tricked Beans to shelf him, and he f***ed his life up to me doing that. But I had him. You know what I mean? Like, that was my new Jay.
And then Beanie also recently opened up about the situation and pretty much co-signed Dame's claims, admitting he took Dame's support for granted.
Dame actually came and got me when I got out of prison. And we was on a tour bus, and they was interviewing me. And they asked me then and there on a bus. Now I'm just getting out of prison. Like, he at the jail picked me up. And they posed that question that I was, or made the statement that I was going to be with Dame Dash Music Group. And I said then that I didn't want to make that choice between Jay or Dame. I just wanted to stay neutral. I believe if we had those conversations, I believe I would have rolled with Dame. I'd have rocked with Dame. Yeah, if Dame set me down and he had a plan, regardless what the plan was, and mapped it out like this was going to do, the smartest decision at that time for me would have rolled with Dame, because Dame was more accessible than Jay was. Dame was in the office every day. You could talk to Dame. You know what I mean? Dame used to come and chill on the block in South Philly. You know what I mean? Dame pull up in Biggs at Mom Duke's spot. So, yeah, I think if we would have sat and he would have showed me and explained to me, our business plan and what we was going to do, that would have been an easy decision.
As for Jay-Z, Beanie said it was clear that there were moves made behind the scenes to hold him back. He pointed out how Jay would intentionally release albums around the same time as his, keeping Beanie's sales limited and blocking his rise. And while Beanie owned up to his own mistakes, including his legal issues, he made it clear that Jay's actions were deliberate.
I don't think one man could destroy another man's life. It's ultimately in your own decisions. I made a lot of I had a lot of issues. Like I said, legal issues at the time. And, you know, my mind wasn't where I'm at now today. Like, I used to have questions like why every time my album dropped, Jay would drop right on top. He wouldn't let me breathe or right before me. Like, I was always close, and I never understood that every single album that I dropped, Jay dropped right on top of me. And it was like, damn, like to have in-house competition at that magnitude was crazy. Jay already the boss, but I always thought that, like, let me breathe.
And then, of course, there's 50 Cent, who also accused Jay of pulling sneaky moves behind the scenes to sabotage him. Back in 2023, 50 publicly accused Jay of trying to stop him from performing at the 2022 Super Bowl by pulling strings with the NFL. But Jay's plans didn't work because 50's friend Eminem told the NFL he wouldn't perform unless 50 was included in the show.
Look, Jay-Z and them was putting it together. Mm-hmm. So I think they still harbor some energy towards me.
You think you were purposely left out of the ad?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't think. I think that they were saying the NFL had some issues with me that I don't know what those issues are. Like, what is the issue? When you start looking at, that's not mine. That's theirs. They're harboring, right? But when you look at, M is looking at the entire legacy.
Yeah.
The whole thing, like with M, Dre, and myself, like I'm a shady aftermath. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's so much G-Unit Records.
Right.
They forget that I'm M and Dre's artist.
And then during his recent chat on Cameron's Talk with Flea podcast, 50 doubled down on those allegations. And he claimed that Jay-Z is still making shady moves to block him. Not just in music, but in business too. 50 pointed out the craziest part is that Jay has nothing left to prove. And yet, he's allegedly still trying to block 50's business deals purely out of spite.
This is why I was saying I knew what old boy was doing. Right. With the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Because he was doing, like,
yeah, go ahead.
He was doing some wild shit. Because he was saying that to Eminem that the NFL had the issue with me. And I'm like, well, what's the issue? Why don't I have an issue when I'm becoming a partner in the actual team, but they got an issue with my performance? Right. Makes no sense. You know what I mean?
I was going to get to that later, but since we're here now. And when he says old boy, for the audience that knows, he's talking about Jay-Z. This was discussed before. Jay-Z told Dr. Dre, just for people who's not up on this, or Eminem, that he didn't want you to perform part of that Super Bowl they had a couple years ago. Why do you think that is?
Well, I just
threatened.
Yeah,
possibly.
Not even threatened. You know, I think it's just when you take the competition from, like, our culture is competitive, man. It is, but I think when it goes past the music itself to blocking things in business, then I don't understand that. Like right now, you're not even competing for a slot. You don't have a new song out that he want to be on the top 10 or top 5, and you still competing. It just don't make sense. Like, what are we competing for? What's the goal? Like, this even, like, a lot of the, even a lot of the competitive stuff, or what we would call it beef, right? It changed, that terminology changed when it's Biggie and Tupac, because we start saying the things that people would say that cause beef in the environment. When before that, they called it battling in our culture. Right. Because that's what it is until it turns into some street. So when you're not competing for those things anymore, and you start looking and you're going, so what was the problem? You can't exactly remember what the problem was. That's what went through with Joe.
Now, circling back to Gillie's claims about Jay-Z blackballing him and pushing that slave contract, it's obvious that Gillie isn't the only one who's noticed Jay's shady moves from the jump. But what do you think about Gillie's words? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned for this next video.